Before you enjoy this week's episode, we want to tell you about a whole new podcast that you should check out.
Something mysterious is stirring on Ahway Island. Adventures on Ahway Island is a brand new podcast for curious kids just like you. It's an exciting story that unfolds weekly. The adventure begins when Marie finds a mysterious paper that leads her and her two best friends on an epic journey that will change everything they know about Ahway Island. The adventure is now. Follow on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode of Adventures on Ahway Island. You can find the Adventures on Ahway Island podcast on your favorite podcast player or at ahwayisland.com. That's AHWAY island.com.
New episodes of Adventures on Ahway Island come out every Tuesday, so give them a listen and show them all the love you've been showing us since we got our start 7 years ago. We've listened to the first episodes that are already available, and we are big fans. The story is amazing, and we can't wait to hear more. You can find a link to Adventures on Ahway Island in the show notes for this episode.
And now it's time to get curious.
Hello, and welcome back to the Curious Kid Podcast. English is an interesting language. So many things don't make sense in the English language. You drive a car on a parkway and park your car in a driveway. Also, a ship carries cargo, but a car carries shipments. There are things that people say every day, probably without realizing the meaning behind what they're saying. Let's learn more.
Mailbag!
Mailbag! Hi, we are George, age 7, and Max, age 5, from the Lake Norman area of North Carolina. We love listening to your podcast on the way to school, or really anytime we get in the car with our parents. We are curious about sayings, glass, and highways and roads.
Wow, those are some awesome suggestions. They are so awesome, in fact, that we already covered 2 of them years ago. We learned about glass in episode 149 and roads in episode 127. So check those episodes out to learn more about those super interesting topics. We can't wait to learn all about sayings this week for George and Max.
There are phrases that are used all the time in English and in other languages as well that are really interesting because you wouldn't be able to understand the phrases literally from the words in the phrase. Let me give you an example so you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes people might say that there are bigger fish to fry. When people use that phrase, it really has nothing to do with fish or with frying things. When someone says they have bigger fish to fry, that saying suggests that they have more important things to do. We are going to learn a bunch of sayings, otherwise known as idioms, today, and we are going to learn about the interesting reasons why we use those sayings. Olivia, what's the question of the week?
One interesting saying I hear from time to time is to throw in the towel. The question of the week is, what does it mean to throw in the towel?
All right, Olivia. While our listeners are thinking about the answer to the question of the week, let's dive into the wild, wacky world of idioms. How about we start with spill the beans?
I think I know what spill the beans means, and it has nothing to do with making a huge mess with beans everywhere. It means to reveal a secret. I wonder how that came to be. Why would spill the beans mean to reveal a secret?
So spill the beans comes from ancient Greece. In some Greek elections, people would vote by placing either a white or black bean in a jar. A white bean was a yes, and a black bean was a no. If someone accidentally, or maybe not so accidentally, spilled the jar, the secret vote would be revealed.
Whoa! So someone literally spilled the beans and exposed the secret?
Exactly. And now it just means to let a secret slip out.
So, what about raining cats and dogs? Because I have never seen a single puppy or kitten fall from the sky. Not even once.
I'm glad you haven't. The phrase raining cats and dogs actually comes from 17th century England. Back then, houses had straw roofs, which didn't provide much protection from the rain. Animals like cats and dogs would sometimes hide in the thatched roofs. And during heavy rainstorms, they would literally slide off the roof. People would say it's raining cats and dogs.
Wait a second. Cats and dogs just falling from the roof? That sounds like a cartoon. But it is the reason why we still say raining cats and dogs today.
Speaking of cats, there is another saying involving cats. Have you heard anyone say, let the cat out of the bag? Well, it has nothing to do with someone opening up a giant bag and a cat just zooming out and saying meow. Why don't you tell us where that saying comes from?
This idiom comes from the Middle Ages when people would sell animals at markets. If you bought a pig, sometimes sneaky sellers would swap it out with a cat in a sack. If you opened the bag before you got home, you'd let the cat out of the bag and discover you were tricked. So, let the cat out of the bag means revealing a secret. Dad, how about the saying, mad as a hatter? I've wondered if that saying has anything to do with the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, it kinda does. But unlike Alice in Wonderland, the origin of Mad as a Hatter is real. In the 1800s, hat makers, or hatters as they were called, used mercury to make felt hats. Over time, mercury poisoning caused them to act really strange. Like they were, well, mad. That's where the phrase comes from.
So, they were literally going bonkers for making some hats. And that's why the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland is so wacky.
Okay, let's go back to dogs for another saying I know you've heard before. What's the origin of people saying barking up the wrong tree?
This one comes from hunting dogs in the 1800s. Hunting dogs would chase their prey up a tree, but sometimes they would get confused and bark up the wrong tree with no prey in it. So when someone says barking up the wrong tree, it means that you're looking in the wrong place or blaming the wrong person.
Here is another idiom, burning the midnight oil. It means staying up late working really hard. It comes from before electricity, when people would light oil lamps to work or study late at night. That makes a whole lot of sense.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away comes from the country of Wales and dates back to the 1800s. People believed that eating an apple a day would keep you healthy and out of the doctor's office. That's because apples are a very healthy food. Wouldn't it be cool if chocolate kept you away from the doctors instead?
It sure would, but apples are probably a bit healthier than chocolate. How about the saying break the ice? It means to get people talking. It comes from shipping days long ago. When ships would get stuck in ice during winter, smaller boats called icebreakers would clear a path for the ship to get through. So breaking the ice helped get things moving, just like starting a conversation.
One saying I've heard a lot is something costing an arm and a leg. That means that something is really expensive, and this one dates back to the 1700s. Portrait paintings were very expensive, and some painters charged more if you wanted your arms and legs included in the painting, because it was harder to paint. People would often get a painting of just their face to save money.
Another idiom with interesting origins is beat around the bush. This one comes from bird hunting. Hunters would actually send people to literally beat around bushes to scare the birds out so they could catch them. But if you only beat around the bush and didn't actually hunt the birds, you weren't getting the job done. That's why beating around the bush means avoiding a topic, so speaking without ever getting to the point.
Here's a cool one. Sometimes people say, wear your heart on your sleeve. The saying comes from medieval jousting tournaments. Knights would wear the colors of the lady they were fighting for on their sleeve to show their devotion. That's why wearing your heart on your sleeve means showing your feelings openly.
I know someone who tends to wear his heart on his sleeve often, and he's here to drop some knowledge on us. Idioms don't only exist in English. Here to share 5 unbelievable idioms from foreign languages is Noah. Take it away, Noah.
Idiom number 1. In German, people might say, jump over your shadow. That is just a way to encourage someone to try something different. Idiom number 2. In Italian, if someone calls you a piece of bread, don't be offended. It's actually a compliment. Calling someone a piece of bread is another way of saying that the person is kind and thoughtful. And why not? Bread is delicious. Idiom number 3. But if someone calls you a goat in Spanish, that's not such a great thing. In Spanish culture, goats are considered a bit silly, so being called a goat means that you're acting wild and crazy. Idiom number 4. In Swedish, people might say that you were caught with your beard in a mailbox. It's similar to the saying, caught with your pants down in English. It means to be caught in an embarrassing situation. Idiom number 5. In Polish, if you say that someone has flies up their nose, it means that they are getting upset about something that's not really a big deal.
Nicely done, Noah. Before we answer the question of the week, let's go over what some other idioms mean in rapid-fire fashion. Ready, set, go!
Under the weather means feeling sick. Piece of cake means easy. Jump ship means to quit something suddenly. Hit the hay means to go to sleep, and ball in your court means it's your turn to do something.
A dime a dozen is used to describe something that's super common. Bite off more than you can chew means trying to do too much at once. Cry over spilled milk means being upset about something you can't change. Every cloud has a silver lining means there's always something good, even in a bad situation. Also, kill 2 birds with 1 stone means solving 2 problems at once. All right, let's answer the question of the week. Another common idiom is to throw in the towel. What does that idiom mean, and where does it come from?
This one comes from the sport of boxing. When a coach thinks the boxer has had enough, they literally throw a towel into the ring to stop the match. So, throw in the towel means to give up on something.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast number 313 on sayings.
Great job, Olivia, and great job, George and Max, for an episode topic suggestion that was so good, we did it at the drop of a hat. By the way, at the drop of a hat is another idiom. Can you think of any more that we didn't cover in this episode? Before we say goodbye for the week, we have an amazing listener to thank.
We want to thank Henry for the 5-star review.
It says, "Hi, my name is Henry, and I was just here to say I love your podcast."
That's awesome! Thank you so much for the review. People often ask us what they could do to support the podcast. If you love Curious Kid Podcast, please take a moment to leave us a review. It is super easy to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. There is nothing you can do that doesn't cost a single penny that would help the podcast more than leaving a quick 5-star review.
If you haven't left us a review yet, please consider doing so, because it's better late than never. That's another idiom. Olivia and I would be on cloud 9 if you leave us a review. And there's another idiom. If you leave us a review, there is a great chance we will read it in an upcoming episode. Join us next week when we will get curious about famous siblings for a listener in Virginia. As always, thank you so much for listening and getting curious with us.